right, let's talk about ageism and aging in an ageist society. So my first question that Sydney actually came up with, thank you, Sydney, which I think is a really good question, is how often in therapy, I think a lot of your patients are actually younger is my sense, but I could be wrong. But how often in therapy does ageism come up as an issue for people?
Ageism comes up for my girls in their 20s.
Mm.
It is, so this is an unbelievable topic, and there are certain things I want to cover, but ageism comes out in the terms of a youth-oriented, don't look old way, right? All the things that are about aging start to be about what we look like. And so there's this matchup of staying looking good and youth that is all tied into what we start to feel about getting older and what that means and how relevant we're going to stay in society. And so age is this thing that has everything to do with so many deeper things that we play out in what we look like, what we wear, when we dye our hair, getting injections and plastic surgery and making sure our bodies look young. And so it is a big topic, especially for women, and it's women listening to this, because we put ourselves through a lot to stay relevant because we're getting older. It's also about, for women, are we relevant to men? Are men going to find us sexually attractive? Are people going to want to hire us? You mentioned Maria Shriver being the only woman of her age at the company, and like, what does that mean? And and on and on and on, or and the amount of women or people, men do this too, of plastic surgery and trying to stay looking a certain way and then pretending they're not doing plastic surgery. And I'm talking about the people in the limelight, like they're all doing stuff, and then when they're asked, how do you look so good, oh, I drink a lot of water and I get enough sleep, but everyone's putting themselves under the knife. And so it's a very big topic, and and I'm sure if people want to ask questions or talk, I think everyone's having an experience with aging. My girls in their 20s and 30s are doing Botox to avoid ever getting a wrinkle, and they're getting their lips injected. The Kardashians are like the relevance of changing their faces and looking, from a very young age. It's really out of hand what's happening, because
it's completely
society.
And of course, ultimately, like, there's the ultimate irony. Well, two ironies. One, you can't beat the clock. We're all going to get old no matter what we do.
And we're all going to die no matter what we do.
We're all going to die no matter what we do, and could be any day now. And also, like, if you're getting old, you're lucky. You could be dead, right? I mean, those are the two fundamental ironies about all of this issue. But I guess the other thing so there's two ways of looking about tackling the ageism conversation. One is what we do to ourselves, and like what we feel from society and the pressure we feel and how much intervention we do and blah, blah, blah. And the other thing is how much we are actually discriminated against and how we deal with that. Like what is really, the way I approach it, people have said to me in the past, like with what would Virginia Woolf do and the Wolfer and Revel, are you trying to change the way society thinks about aging? And I actually say, because my personal lens on the world tends to be more personal, I feel like, no, I can't change the way the world thinks about aging women. What I can do is help women change how they feel about themselves. Like that's what I feel like my project has been more about. But then at times I wonder, if I'm not being responsible enough, like maybe I should be working on how the world changes here.
So a couple of things. First of all, I do think that that's how you affect change. If you affect change within, right, this is what I do all day, every day. If you affect change in how a woman feels about herself and she shows up to the world differently, that does start to shift how people start to see women. That's number one. Number two, and this is where it brings you back to when I said you're 52 and like, what you're doing now is no different than what you did at 22 in terms of the way you approach life. So this is an individual thing, and this is really, really important. The way each one of us is approaching aging, we don't change who we are because we turn 50 or 60 or 70. It's the same way we were at 20 and 30 and 40. So some people approach aging in an ageist society with, I will call you an enthusiast. You have wanderlust. You have a zest for life. You never stop. You're always learning and changing and growing and risking. And you're going to do that at 60 and 70 and 80 because you did it at 18 and 28 and 38 and 48. That is who you are.
This is so reassuring. Thank you. Although I'll still also do a lot of the bad things I do, but thank you.
But and then there are some people who were always super cautious and feeling bad about themselves, and they're going to feel that way in aging and everything else in between. So when we so there's the society, right? The sociological impact of ageist society.
Yeah.
There's the psychological of how are we interacting with that. But then it's the personal. We're not all interacting with aging in the same way because we're not all the same. And then it goes back to your core. How did you feel about yourselves in your 20s? How important were looks to you? How much did you use looks and youth to feel good about yourself?
Oh, I see.
How much have you worked on yourself and found other things that help you feel relevant other than youth? What industry are you in? You know, in psychology, I can age and no one's going to care somewhat. But I would tell you, when I tell my clients my age, they're like shocked. And they're like, really? You don't look 57. I said, I just turned 57 Monday.
Happy birthday. That's right. Debbie's birthday was 2 days ago.
I said,
wait, I'm surprised you're 57 too. I thought we were the same age. Why do I
no, we were never the same age.
We were never the same age. Okay.
I've always been 5 years ahead of you.
Okay.
Or 4.5 years, whatever it is. But I was like, well, what does 57 look like? This is what 57 looks like. And the amount of people, like I have a best friend who walks around, how old do you think I look? I'm like, you look like 57. Maybe you look good for 57, but
I say that all the time. Actually, yeah. I mean, a lot of people like that. You know, a lot of people will say like,
oh, I don't look my age.
I don't look my age, or I feel 25. That just mystifies me. Like I very much feel 52. Like I feel like I've earned every minute here.
But we're all guilty of it. Like we Botox, you Botox, I Botox.
Yeah.
Right. We color our hair. I color my hair. I don't know if you're gray, but I color my grays.
I don't color my hair yet. I've just been lucky that it's not, I have a little bit of gray, but it's not too much.
If you had gray, you color it.
Totally.
You know, I'm lucky enough to only have 2 lines in here, but if I had lines across here, I would shoot them.
Oh, I totally Botox my entire forehead. Right. I have a very big forehead. But I have a mixed feeling.
We're all doing something, and you know, I will stop it. I won't cut, but that's because. But I think it's because I went through breast cancer and I had a bad experience with surgery. So now surgery scares the hell out of me. Mm-hmm. So I have my line. I'll Botox, but I won't cut. And so I'm going to age, right? Because your face eventually droops.
Right.
Other people have a different line, and it's okay. But, you know, it's an individual experience. You know, I was at a Passover dinner the other night, and someone who's a couple of years older than me said she looks at her neck every day and she's suffering. She has to get a neck job. She goes, I can't look at myself. She's in so much pain over it. You know, where everyone has to individually assess where they are and what they feel and why they're doing it, you know. And then when we're done, I also want to talk about other things you can do to feel good other than constantly try to stay relevant in terms of what you look like. Right. But there are some industries that really discriminate, and that's hard.
Yeah.
You know?
All right. So a couple things. I want to address a couple things in the chat. I also think that the 2 points I've written down are really valid that we should all hear. One is that it's a very individual experience. We all do it differently. And to a large extent, we do it the same way we've been doing everything else throughout our lives. And one of the things I thought about this morning is I had this interview with Maria Shriver this morning at the Today Show. They didn't do hair or makeup. So I looked the way I just do. And except I got a blowout. And I felt comfortable. She was really interesting, and we just talked. But then after the interview, they had us do this walking thing where we walked up and down the street, and they were filming us from behind. And I was wearing these really baggy jeans and this kind of big sweater. And I thought, oh, I probably look fat. And then I was a little bit like, whatever, I just don't care. Like I did not give it much. Like I was like, whatever, I'm a 52-year-old woman. I look how I look. So I think my degree of vanity only goes so far. Like I just don't get that hung up. Like if there's a bad picture of me on the, like whatever, I'm a little bit, so that is like my line, which I'll probably always feel that way. So it's not like I don't care, but there's a limit to how much I care.
Right, but your line has always been the same.
Yes, my line has been
that's the biggest thing I want to impose on people. There is a societal thing, there is ageism, and then there's what we bring to it. And you don't all bring the same thing. Like even I'm going famous just because everyone knows, like I look at some people in Hollywood who are aging, and I have so much respect for it. They're just allowing themselves to age, and they're not giving into it because they're, and I think that's a movement that is helping the rest of us be like, it's okay to age, we don't have
like Annette Bening, like all sorts of women. Although then you look at J-Lo and you think, I mean, she just looks amazing and it seems to be kind of natural. Ish.
Listen, some people are born beautiful with great bodies and they keep it up and they keep it going. And if you think she's doing nothing, you're wrong.
No, of course
you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
We're doing some things, but has she cut herself? No. And who knows, but my point being is that everyone has to sort of figure out how much are they suffering from ageism? How much is it in their way from living their lives? How much are they succumbing to it? And it's different line for everyone. And so I always use Nina because I know her so well, but like, you might feel certain things some days because you're a human being, but it has never gotten in your way in your 20s and it will not get in your way in your 80s. You will always go after life because that's who you are, and then there's the rest of us in between. And then there's people who are over here that their lives are really being impacted and they feel horrible about themselves and they're not going after the things they want in life.
Because, well, that goes to one of the questions in the audience. So someone asks, how do we manage the internalized self-hate and body disgust? Our whole lives not measuring up to the magazines, ever present and shameful as a feminist. Brave question. And
yeah, and that's the suffering that, whoever asked it, I'm sure that's not the first time you've suffered because we've gotten older, you've probably been suffering with something around self-hate or body hatred your whole life, so first thing is like, I would always recommend talking through this stuff, but even going to therapy doesn't necessarily take it away. And this goes to some of the things that become so important, like whether we're talking about ageism or earlier, but specifically now, like finding a purpose in life outside of oneself and away from what we look like is life changing for people. And, and I wanted to just give two examples because they're the ones that popped into my head when I was preparing for this. So I was always enthralled with Magic Johnson when he got AIDS. I remember this, I remember being like so mesmerized, right? So his purpose in life when he was a young dude was playing basketball and being famous, but his purpose was playing basketball and affecting change through that. And then the AIDS crisis and him getting AIDS totally shifted his whole purpose in life. And it became less about being young and athletic and all of that to now, he's helped so many people because of AIDS and he's become, business guy, but he's impacted so many people on such a deeper level as he's gotten older. And I understand he's a man, but they are also aging and they also suffer differently, but they do because I work with a lot of them. And it's a shift in purpose. And so I want people to start thinking about their purpose in their 20s and their 30s and their 40s and their 50s. It can shift, it can change, and finding what unique gift you have to give to the world. And if you affect change in one human being's life, that's a purpose. And the other person I love to talk about, and this is my own pet, Howard Stern's wife, Beth Stern, this gorgeous model, right? Her purpose, it used to be being a gorgeous model. That was her what she was doing in life. She found her purpose in helping animals. And she talks about, as she's getting older, she's never been happier because she has a true purpose. And I follow her because I too, it's my second purpose in life in helping animals. I'm a big animal advocate. And, if I could have her life, I might, in terms of all day, every day, just spend taking care of cats because I would love it. But
Debbie's going to be a crazy cat lady one day.
I'm already a crazy cat lady and a shrink. My point being, her purpose shifted and she's never been happier because she's affecting change in the world. So
I really get that. I have to say, I've started to realize this might sound weird. I mean, in addition to my work with women, which is so important to me, and I really love it, I'm also feeling strong more and more every day. Like my purpose is to really be a good parent to my kids and like to be a good role model for them and to really be there in every way in as healthy a way as possible. And I wasn't clear about that at all when I was younger. I was too self-absorbed and consumed with whatever else I was going through. But yes, that helps the idea of getting older feel more palatable because it feels like I'm supposed to age gracefully or well or happily or whatever word you want to use for them.
Yes, before I forget, I'm sorry, the other thing, because I'm on the question of this person suffering, yes, is the other thing is people have this notion, and it happens all the time, when someone looks a certain way, that their life is perfect, they have no problems, and it makes us feel like they have such a good life because, and it was all encouched in what they look like, and then we hate ourselves, and it just isn't true, because I work with beautiful, beautiful people and models, and everyone's got this, and sometimes they can't stand themselves either. So it's a myth that if you were housed in a certain physical appearance, all of a sudden you would through.
Oh, Jenny, you just froze for a sec. Repeat that last sentence.
It isn't true that if you were housed in the most perfect body, that you would necessarily like yourself better, because I work with too many people housed in beautiful bodies that never feel good enough. The not good enough experience and again, it's not to say that, like, God, that person has a beautiful body. It'd be nice if I had that body. But then if you suffer because of that, that's a childhood thing. That's something that went on young with your mother and your father, or what you were given, or your emptiness. It isn't about the body. It just isn't about that, but we make it about that. Right. I know a million people who don't have amazing bodies and are so happy and run around the beach, and and then I know people with amazing bodies who are always covered up. And that's a person thing. That's a young thing. That's not what does your body look like thing.
Celeste in the audience is talking about, she says, I believe strongly that social media and how our society and culture is so much more visual is a huge factor now than when we were in our youth, meaning it's intensified ageism and the focus on youth. It's funny, I guess that's true. I know Celeste and adore her. Hi, Celeste. But I also feel, I guess I would slightly argue that I think there is now this movement about women talking about women in menopause and women talking about aging. And we have all these older women in Hollywood who are incredible. And we have Michelle Obama and we have Jane Fonda. And did we always celebrate those older women as much as we are now? I guess I'm feeling a little bit hopeful that this is actually shifting.
So I was saying, yes, that social media has definitely brought that into, we're bombarded with it more.
Yeah.
But what Nina just said is the other part of that. We're also bombarded more with older women and body positivity. And,
Right. We've got the Kardashians, but we also have like Lizzo and the way people are celebrating Lizzo.
Yes. And, and if you're talking about social media and Instagram, the amount of accounts that are blowing up about body positivity is huge.
Yeah.
So we're also trying as a society, I think, to embrace other things. There's more older people in broadcasting now. There's older women on TV shows like The View and The Talk, and in movies, or look at Helen Mirren, or, I do think things are getting better. I don't know if we're not there yet.
No, but it does. I also just read a really interesting book that I loved. I interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, a woman named Vicki Larson. I think it's called Not Too Old for That. And in her book, I'm writing it down, Not Too Old for That. In her book, she talks about ageism and sexism and racism. And she brings up ableism and the rights of disabled people. And I really liked that lens, because I think the whole way that we're embracing gender fluidity and different abilities, and all of that lends itself to being more open to accepting difference of all kinds, including being older, right?
Yeah.
Someone just said, I'm sorry for the rage about looking youthful. I'm waiting to hear about what new purposes one can find in our 70s and up. If you stop looking in the mirrors so much, you can learn from others to help where possible. Yes.
Well, that's the part of like finding the purpose, giving back, mentoring, affecting change in someone's life. That's what I was talking about. Like, we are so driven by youth and looks and all of that, and trying to be that, and then feeling bad about ourselves. But if we shift our lens, and I agree with her, from what we look like and being young and being relevant in that way, to what brings us joy, what brings us purpose. How can we help someone? I put something out on Instagram, this one-liner, this quote, and now I wish I can remember it, because it wasn't my quote. I think it was Emerson. But if you affect change in one human being, then you've lived a good life.
Yeah.
And so if we're bringing this all together, I'm trying to show like we are all looks obsessed and youth obsessed because of what society has done. We then bring our personalities to it and our patternings and how we've always felt about ourselves. And that's how it interacts with society. Some people, and we're not in a bubble, so we're going to be impacted by society. Some people are going to feel it, like Nina just said, but embrace it and move on from it and not suffer from it. Like, oh, my ass might look fat, from behind. And I'm like, all right, so my ass will look fat from behind. And then and I try to help my 40 and somethings do this as well, because they suffer in the same way. They just don't know what's ahead, right? There's always compare and contrast and who looks better and who's doing what. And if you shift your whole mindset to how can I serve? How can I help? What fills me up? What fills my bucket up, my emotional bucket, separate from what's happening in society? And push yourself to take that risk, to go after something, even though you're older, even if you don't look exactly the way you are. It's like we hold ourselves back. I understand there's an interaction with what society is doing, but there are some women who are not holding themselves back, no matter how old they get. And there are some women who are holding themselves back since they're 25 and everything in between.
That's a great, great message. I hope everyone listening has really absorbed that. It's actually, well, I wrote in the chat that we have agency in how we deal with this. Not that that's so easy, but we do. We have agency in how we deal with ageism and aging. Also, I will say from my interview this morning with Maria Shriver, who's 66, she talked about exactly this. She talked about feeling now post-divorce, 10 years, kind of come back to herself, very happy with her relationship with her adult children, and now very much about giving back and serving and being her most authentic self. So, really, and I really felt it from her, like, and not that it's easy, but that's really the mission right now.
Yeah, and to not be caught up in what is being tugged at us to be caught up in, right? And it takes a lot of work on yourself to be able to sort of stand back and listen. A lot of people I work with and know actually start to feel better as they get older because they've worked through some of the kinks and they wish they had felt what they feel now when they were younger and could have, felt better maybe about what they look like, but they're still going after all the things they want to go after.
Yeah, no. And Kathleen in the audience says she's experiencing invisibility and lack of acknowledgement, also ageism in terms of older people not having all their marbles anymore. So people may be making assumptions. So again, I think to the point of this conversation, the answer is focus inward, figure out what really is meaningful for you, what makes you feel good. Someone earlier in the chat asked about how to react when people dismiss you. So I guess that's also connected to what Kathleen's saying. Like if you're experiencing being treated as if you're invisible, you're not being acknowledged, you're being dismissed, how do you deal with that?
Well, listen, I'm not going to sugarcoat. I think that's a real issue in society. I really do. I think that there is something about getting older and again, people's perception of you and not paying attention to you at all. And I think that becomes, and again, how it hits us is an individual experience. Like some people, it will hurt and wound like crazy. Some people will be like, I don't really care that this person's not talking to me because the people who matter are.
I think that's right. I think it's an interesting question about how much you notice it. And actually, I think about racism in that way. Like, I'm Black and grew up with a Black mother and a white father and really don't feel that aware of much discrimination that I've experienced. Clearly, it's what I'm seeing in the world. Like it's the way I was raised, the way I've approached being different. Like I've always kind of liked being mixed race and being I can only think of 2 examples in my entire life where I've been like clearly discriminated against. I'm sure there have been others that I just haven't even been aware of. So how much am I going to be aware of people being ageism or being made to feel invisible? Like I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, but it really is it's a real issue. And it's, listen, you can't not notice, in our world, like it's more women than men. Women are made to feel invisible. Women don't, get the job or get the parts, it's like men get handsome and women fall apart. And, it's all of that stuff. And so, it does hurt. Like, so I always work
Yeah.
on the iceberg level. At the top, like, it's going to hurt anyone that feels irrelevant or invisible or dismissed because of age. And then it will affect the core of us differently. Like, there's a modicum amount of, as a human being, if that's what's happening to you, you're going to feel bad about it. It's just then what you do with it has everything to do with sort of our patternings and our beginnings and how we've gone through life before that.
Completely agree. Completely agree. I love this, Debbie. And to wrap up, I want to bring up what Janet from Ottawa just said, because it's a really good point. She said, but also let's not shame women into feeling bad if they want to look good, stay in shape, dress nice. And we're not at all, Janet. These are ways of self-expression that are not necessarily detractors from other aspects of our life. It doesn't mean that we're living less meaningful lives or lack purpose. I mean, 100%. If anyone took that away, we did not mean that.
That's why I started with saying, I'm coloring my hair and we're shooting Botox.
Yeah, we're all about you do you. I mean, 100%. I don't care if you have face, whatever.
I think that's what I'm saying. It's an individual choice. Like, there is nothing wrong. I think it's very important to actually, I went through breast cancer. I had 6 surgeries. My hair was blown out every week because it made me feel better. I never missed a blowout. I had someone come and blow up my hair every week, and everything else was falling apart. Okay.
Yeah.
So please, I'm sorry that I think you might to feel good in your body, whatever makes you feel good. Godspeed.
Yeah.
I'm not cutting because I had a bad experience. If I could, I might cut. I don't know.
No, I don't want to have surgery either. But she says, my point is also to not feel pressure to age because of the number associated. 100%. I think our message here to everyone is age however the fuck you want to age. And the issue of ageism in society, Debbie's point is that you're going to approach aging and ageism the way you've approached everything. So if you're really suffering and you're attributing it to feeling invisible or to ageism, you might need to do a little deeper work into that historical feeling. And you also may need to look at finding purpose. Sorry, go ahead.
And like Nina said, and I'll share something about myself too, like, it's okay to feel it. It's just not okay to let it stop you from living your life.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, listen, aging is hard. I don't like seeing what's happening to my body and my face. I don't like getting older. I liked it better when it was younger, but feeling it and then stopping your life is another thing, or sitting in the badness of it versus, well, that sucks. So let me go on with my day. It's just like, where are you at? That's the barometer. Like, for instance, I'm making a foray possibly back into doing some TV work. I haven't done TV work in 5 years because I got sick and then it was COVID. And an opportunity showed up. I don't know if it's going to be mine. And I look at myself, I'm like, oh my God, like, I'm older. My face looks older. I've gained weight. Am I really going to put myself through going on TV and looking at myself? And I was like, yeah,
yes, I am.
And I still want to do this. See if
and also, you have to think of the other side of it. Like, I have to say, this morning with Maria Shriver, I was like, I know a lot about this subject. I can talk about this subject really easily for 45 minutes, and I can be really helpful, actually. So who cares what I look like? Like, whatever.
Right. But it certainly was a thought, is my point.
Yes, totally.
And I was like, do I really want to have to then look at myself and see all the aging? And I was like, yeah, because I really still want to do it and F it, right?
Yes.
So, at any rate, ladies that are listening, like, it's super hard getting older. It is. It's not easy not looking a certain way. Do what you want to do to make yourself feel good. If you don't want to do anything and you want to age gracefully, which I have so much respect for, do that. If you're suffering, you need to take a look at how you've lived your life, and are you suffering from the same issues now that you were then? It just gets harder now, right? Like, if you didn't like your body then, it's certainly going to be harder in your 50s, 60s, and 70s to like your body. And how much is this holding you back from, we only have a finite amount of time on this planet. Every decade could be different and fruitful. I want people to go out there, and even if you feel older or not as attractive, F it. Go after the things that you want, take risks, learn, grow, change, find enjoyment, find purpose, live your lives. And if you can't, you got to seek help, and you got to look at your core, and you got to look at what's holding you back, because whether we're in an ageist society or not, there are some people who are aging. Jane Fonda is a great one. She found a new purpose in her 80s. She's
She's totally one of my role models.
yeah,
I
she's
love
doing
her.
TV in her 80s.
Yep. She's
She's
amazing.
She's helping the environment in her 80s. She has found purpose. Maria Shriver has found purpose. She's 66. Like, unless you're not here anymore, there's always an opportunity for purpose and joy and living.
Totally. All right. I love you, Debbie.
I love you too, Nina.
So great to talk to everyone. This was a really good conversation. And I always say this every month, but I don't think we have one scheduled for May. I think we're taking the summer off. If we have one more.
We just spoke. I thought we have one more in May.
Well, we said we were going to do one, but I just took a quick look. Anyway, we'll figure it out. We'll do one more for May, and then we're going to take the summer off. If we don't have a schedule,
we'll start again, whatever. But
yeah.
Okay, just let me know. I don't know what we're doing. Let me know.
Big kiss. Lots of love to everyone. Thank you,
everybody.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye, sweetie.